Hey everyone, okay. I opened up my Snapchat this morning to do a Q&A for the podcast. My podcast is hopefully going to be starting either Monday or Monday week as soon as it gets the okay from iTunes. So I've recorded the first two episodes. The first one's on everything you need to know about burning body fat. The next one's on everything you need to know about building muscle. And the third one is going to be a GAA kind of built in with how to keep a lean physique and do different sports like GAA, football, hurling, camogie, ladies football. I opened up my Snapchat for people to send me questions for that podcast, but there's been so many of them, and a couple of them are like applicable to like right now with games and the weekends and stuff. So I'm going to do a Q&A, like a GAA Q&A. And answer some of those questions. You can keep sending them in, and I'll screenshot anyone you put podcast and GA beside. And I'm going to be recording the episode tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be able to release a couple of them, in a row, so you can flick through the podcast when it's all up and running. Okay, so question one. I'm a girl. Big game Saturday. When should the last big training session be? Okay, so for example, in my Lean Body GA program, there's different versions of the program, but generally what I would do is always have the day before as a rest day. If you've got, say, championship on a Sunday, I would always make sure your rest day is on the day before. You can do some active recovery. So for example, there's a full recovery session in that program where you're doing myofascial release, like foam rolling your quads, tension trigger point training in your hamstrings, loosening out your calves, making sure everything in the kinetic chain is firing, so things like your glutes fire better on the day of the game. You can do that the day before, but I would always take the rest day the day before. If it's a massive game and you feel that you've been overtrained up to that point, I take 2 days before it even. So take the Thursday and the Friday off and play the game on Saturday. It varies person to person. I always found I was better taking 1 day off. If I took 2 days off, I started to get stiff the next day. So normally, like if I have a championship game on Saturday, I'll take the Friday off and do my biggest session, so like legs on like the Monday. So there's plenty of recovery before the game on the Saturday. That's literally how the program is set up as well. The legs always falls on a Monday in the in-season. There's two versions, the in-season and off-season program. On the in-season, you'll always train legs on a Monday because of you have the increased recovery for the weekend. That's the first question. Two, firstly, improving speed, jump height. Secondly, what's the best to rehydrate with during training and games? Okay, to improve speed, what you need to do is get your glutes firing quicker. So it's funny because you can't technically improve speed, but you can improve the rate at which you take off. So if your glutes are firing faster and they're used to firing, you'll take off quicker, which will make you faster over 10 or 20 meters, which is like how fast you need to be. Your speed in any sport needs to be over that initial jerk and initial period. So getting your glutes to fire faster. So doing things like barbell box squats, kettlebell swings to your glutes, box jumps, plyometrics, where your glutes are firing. If your glutes are firing 3, 4, 5 days in a week in the gym, the in-season program's 3 or 4 days, the off-season's 5 days, your glutes are going to fire automatically when you go to train them. When you go to train or play football and you've been training them 4 or 5 days in a week, they're just used to switching on. It's like your body has become so accustomed to that movement, it's become accustomed to switching on those muscles that you can literally switch them on as you need to when it's time for a game. So doing the right program is what gets your glutes fired. That's what improves your speed overall. And then rehydration, things like potassium, magnesium, and sodium are kind of like our sodium. Pink Himalayan salt is a better version of say, sodium. Sodium chloride, I'd avoid that because it's just a shitty salt. But making sure that things like potassium are okay, supplement with magnesium at night. But during a game then, just normal electrolytes work fine. A little bit of salt before you train, like pink Himalayan salts, before you train normally works a treat. And it just kind of gets everything moving properly before you train so that you're not getting stiff and cramped during games. But the hydration is key. If you're getting stiff or cramps or anything like that during games, make sure your hydration's on point. I'd always aim to drink, if you're drinking 4 liters of water a day, try and drink at least those 3 liters before the game, spaced so you're not fucking running to the bathroom during the game, but your body is at least properly hydrated so that you don't cramp. Okay, next question. Is Amino Energy good before games? I took it twice and didn't notice a big change. No, it's not a great supplement before games. A lot of the GA players are using Amino Energy there for a while because Optimum Nutrition had a major push for GA at one stage. I think they've gone down the rugby route now. It's just not a great pre-workout. I don't love the sources that are in it. It's just not an amazing thing. And Amino Energy is kind of it's kind of advertised as an intra-workout drink anyway, but you don't want to be taking caffeine and stuff intra-workout because your body's already in a state of heightened cortisol, it's already in a state of stress. You don't want to put it into any more of a heightened state. because it's going to interfere with buffering lactic acid and clearing out those systems that need to be functioning optimally for you to perform at your best. I prefer just normal caffeine, or even better, green tea extract before you train, like 1,000 milligrams or 500 milligrams of green tea extract before you train, and then maybe 200 to 400 milligrams of caffeine if you want like a mental edge, is my personal preference. How important is a strong core for GAA? It's crucial. You know, everything comes through your core. All the strength is coming from your core, that region, your hips, your glutes. They need to be strong. The reality is, if you can't take tackles, you're no good to anybody. You know, if you can't break a tackle and you can't hold on to the ball, or you can't break a tackle in hurling or camogie, you're no good to anybody, because you can't keep in possession of the ball. And the reality is, you know, fucking possession is 9/10 of the law. Like, you know, if you have possession in games, you're going to play better, you're going to do better, your team is going to do better in the overall game, you know, because you have control of possession. It's not always that case, but 90% of the time. The only sport that doesn't really seem to apply is soccer. You know, you can have none of the possession and the team can attack once, get a goal and win 1-0, where that doesn't really happen in GAA. So making sure your core is strong, focusing on compound lifts, focusing on things like kettlebells, box jumps, your plyometrics will work a little bit of core as well, and having your good compound lifts in there, your barbell squats, your bench press, and focusing with mainly free weights. So that lean GAA program is mostly free weights, a little bit of machine work, but majority barbell, dumbbell, and box and kettlebell work for explosiveness. Back to college in Cork, but still have Ulster Championships at home. How can I stay on top of my ball work and match fitness? I play camogie. Okay, what I would do is a good training program in the gym. That's going to cover everything from the strength point of view, in terms of you won't lose your fitness because you're doing your strength program. Check out my YouTube videos on the GAA program. I've literally like mashed some of them, and I've recorded some of them, so you can actually look through some of the stuff that's in the program. And then in your ball work, I would literally get out. So if you're normally used to training 2-3 times at home, try and get out yourself with one of the other girls, or one of the other guys, and go out and just poke around and get used to don't let the neuromuscular pattern, the movement pattern, get stiff and rigid. Like your body has, it's called a neuromuscular pattern on everything that you do. So that movement, like the swinging of a hurl or swinging of a camogie stick, is a neuromuscular pattern. If you stop doing that for a couple of weeks, it become a little bit stiff and rigid. So what I would do is keep doing those movement patterns. So stay on top of it in the gym, keep your fitness up to scratch, and keep your neuromuscular system firing in terms of getting those movement patterns down so that they don't become stiff. So when you go back and play a game, it takes you fucking 15 minutes just to get switched on, because that's what happens to people. Okay, how can I build muscle around my glutes and hamstring to prevent it from pulling? How can I loosen out my glutes, hamstrings, and hip flexors? It's not strengthening the muscles as such that's going to prevent them from pulling. Keeping them loose is going to be priority number one. So having a good recovery style workout on your whole region, your glutes, your hamstring, your quads, is going to loosen everything up there. And then when they're loose, you can strengthen them, and that will stop them from pulling. It's just, you have it kind of in reverse order. You don't want to strengthen up a muscle that's already tight, because that's only going to increase its risk of pulling. You want to loosen up those muscles, do the recovery stuff, and then add in the strength phase with it. Or else you do them in combination, where you're doing functional based strength stuff. So things like your barbell movements with perfect form, your kettlebells, plyometrics, things like that aren't going to directly tear fibers in that region, but they're going to tighten it up, but not in the sense of like a bodybuilding move where the muscle gets really tight in one plane of motion and you really need to loosen that up and stop training it for it to recover. Sport's a little bit different. So you could actually have a good training program in combination with a recovery program and do them both together, and that would work well. But I would prioritize getting that right first. So myofascial release on your quads, getting the foam roller into your glutes. I generally find them a little bit harder to get foam rollers and stuff into glutes. That's why I tend to, in the program, get you hitting it from like an explosive point of view, and from a plyometric point of view, and from an exercise point of view, and then loosen up everything around it so they fire better, like your quads, hamstrings, calves, kinetic chain, things like that. So that's what I would do, and also loosen up trigger point training, so like a sliotar or a hard ball underneath the knots in your hamstrings, press down on it and release the tension. It's kind of like it's like myofascial release, but it's trigger point training, because it's just a different part. You're actually applying pressure as opposed to like rolling it. Okay, so Last two questions. Half forward, need to sprint faster for longer. Okay, so half forward line, that's my position. Well, I'm center forward now, but normally in the half forward line, is sprinting faster is working your glutes, getting your glutes to fire. That's going to be crucial, particularly if you're half forward too. I would focus on getting your glutes to fire in the gym and covering things like either runs outside or treadmill runs or pitch runs where you're building up your aerobic fitness as well, because you cover a lot of ground in the half back, half forward line in football and hurling. So I'd make sure that your aerobic fitness is good and your glutes are firing from your strength work in the gym. Last question, how do you get faster for Gaelic football? Same question, I should have scanned these first. Firing through your glutes, getting your glutes to fire and releasing everything so that you're not tight. Sometimes you can be slower because your body is tight and rigid. That's why I've got the recovery sessions in that program. And in particular in the off season, people do it like 4 times a week. You can do it up to 5 times a week, and then it cuts back in the in season. In the off season, it reduces back to like twice a week, because you just don't need as much recovery because you're not twisting and turning as much. So keeping your body loose, keeping it so that it's not as tight and rigid, and then getting everything to fire through your glutes is going to make you faster regardless of your position. So I hope this helps. That is everything. I've got a couple of other questions here that I'm going to save because it was loads, so thanks for everyone sending them, and I'm going to answer them in the podcast, which should hopefully be out. I don't know if I'm going to release them all together. I'll talk to my the guys that are in charge of uploading the podcast, and we'll see if it's all going to be up together. But hopefully this video helps in the meantime, just for, I know some of you are coming into the crucial time and the crunch time of your season, some of you are going into your off season, so it kind of gives you a gauge of what you can do there, so hope it helps. Please like and share the page, and if you've got any comments, I'll be replying for the next 24 hours.